The big story that we are focusing on, India Global, is a very tragic story that's unfolding for the family of Nilam Shinde and for herself as well. A 35-year-old woman from Maharashtra, Satara district. She's currently battling for her life in a hospital in California after she suffered critical injuries in a road accident. Ms. Shinde, who's a fourth-year student at California State University, is currently in a coma, and her family has been seeking the center's help to get an emergency visa to the US, as doctors need permission from her blood relatives to operate on her. Remember, it's been almost a fortnight that her father has been battling the red tapeism that is now pretty much the hallmark when it comes to trying to get an emergency visa. But the big NDTV impact, viewers, is that Shinde's father and her brother have now been given an expedited appointment as early as tomorrow, after earlier being given an appointment for 2026. While travel permits for medical emergencies are normally given quickly, it is something that required the intervention of the government. External Affairs Ministry's sources indicate that it was unclear what really was the reason for the delay. It's been almost a fortnight since Nilam met with that really tragic incident, and not only the medical process gets delayed if blood relatives are not there, the other aspect is that the police investigation also doesn't take place the way it should. It's a hit and run case where the police investigation has actually been stalled because there is no blood relative there for procedural issues that need to be done. Hopefully, when the family reaches there, given her medical condition, they are able to make some progress that is delayed right now. Before we move any further, listen in to what Ms. Shinde's brother and father had to say before we get in our reporters to give you the very latest on this.
Tanaji Shinde and Gaurav Kadam, thank you so much for speaking to NDTV again. किस तरह से आप देख रहे हैं गौरव, बता सकते हैं हमें कि कॉल आया आपको, क्या बताया गया है इंटरव्यू के बारे में?
हाँ जी मैम, तो कैसा है, आप सबकी मदद से, चैनल की मदद से और गवर्नमेंट की सब हेल्प से अभी हमें वहाँ से कॉल आया है और हमें कल की ही अपॉइंटमेंट मिल चुकी है, कल सुबह 9 बजे की।
कल सुबह 9 बजे की आपको अपॉइंटमेंट मिली है। अभी कहाँ हैं आप और आपको मुंबई पहुंचना होगा?
यस, अभी हम हमारे गांव में, सातारा जिला में है, सातारा डिस्ट्रिक्ट उमरज में है हम।
हाँ, तो आपको कितना समय लगेगा यानी कि मुंबई जाने में?
यहाँ से 5 घंटा लगता है मैम, 5 घंटा लगता है, तो आज ही हम निकल जाएंगे मुंबई के लिए।
आपको किसका फोन आया था? क्या मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एक्सटर्नल अफेयर्स से आपको आया है फोन?
हाँ जी, क्या हुआ, मतलब हमें सीधा काउंसलेट ऑफिस से ही कॉल आ गया।
आपको लग रहा है, उम्मीद है आपको कि आपको जल्दी वीजा मिल जाएगा?
हाँ, जल्दी। अभी जो वो चीफ मिनिस्टर और सब हमारे पुराने लोग हैं, उसमें जो किया है ठीक, अच्छा किया है। वो वीजा मिल जाएगी, बस इतना ही, और उधर जा सके हम।
जी गौरव, अब क्या उम्मीद कर रहे हैं सरकार से? क्या उम्मीद है आपकी? मैं समझ पा रही हूँ बोलने में दिक्कत हो रही होगी, आपके पिता को भी दिक्कत हो रही है बोलने में, और समझ सकते हैं हम आपका पेन, बट क्या उम्मीद है आपको सरकार से? अब क्या करना चाहिए?
अभी उम्मीद वही है कि ये जो अभी ये जो प्रोसेस चल रही है, इंटरव्यू होगा, वो हो जाए सही से, और हमें जल्द से जल्द, जितना जल्द से जल्द हम यहाँ से उड़ान भर सके वहाँ जाने के लिए, वो हो जाए, और ये इसमें हमारे गवर्नमेंट हेल्प करे, ये हम अभी चाहते हैं।
नीलम को जल्दी वापस लाना चाहते हैं आप?
हाँ जी, और उसको भी, मतलब वो भी क्या हो रहा है, 2-3 दिन से उसका भी थोड़ा सा वो प्रूव हो रहा है, मतलब ट्रीटमेंट को हेल्प कर रही है, मतलब ट्रीटमेंट को अच्छी तरीके से मतलब कर पा रही है। हाँ। उसको हो रहा है, क्या बोलते हैं, ट्रीटमेंट हो रही है सही से, ट्रीटमेंट प्रोग्रेस हो रहा है उसका, ऐसा है जी डॉक्टर के मुताबिक। तो हाँ जी, और मुझे स्पेशली थैंक आपका चैनल का भी करना है मैडम, और चैनल की, आपके चैनल की वजह से भी मतलब बहुत ज्यादा हेल्प हुआ हम वहाँ तक पहुँचने के लिए, सब लोगों की तरफ, मतलब गवर्नमेंट की तरफ हो या
जी। बिल्कुल नहीं, आपको वो सब नहीं, कोई आपको ये कहने की ज़रूरत नहीं, पर ये हमारा ड्यूटी बनती है, हमारी फ़र्ज़ बनती है कि हम अगर इस तरह की हमारे देश का कोई बच्चा या कोई युवक या युवती इस तरह की स्थिति में है और बाहर कोई फंसा हुआ है, तो हमारी ये ड्यूटी बनती है कि हम उस खबर को दिखाएं और आपकी मदद करें। और हम चाहते हैं जल्दी से जल्दी नीलम ठीक हो जाए, नीलम वापस भी आए। आप दोनों जाने वाले हैं यानी कि अब इंटरव्यू के लिए?
हाँ जी मैम, हम दोनों ही जाने वाले।
अच्छा, और अंकल भी हैं? क्या अंकल ने भी किस तरह से बातचीत की है, कुछ सहायता की है?
यस की है, उन्होंने भी बहुत ज्यादा सहायता की है सब चीज में।
अच्छा, ठीक है। आपके पिता कुछ कहना चाहेंगे इस बारे में? अब आगे क्या होना चाहिए सरकार की तरफ से, किस तरह से जो है मैटर को अब आगे ले जाना चाहिए?
वीजा पास होना चाहिए और हमको अमेरिका जल्दी जाने का, बस
नीलम को,
इतना ही।
आप चाहते हैं नीलम जल्दी से वापस? आप नीलम के पास वहीं रुकेंगे या जैसे ही नीलम ठीक हो जाएगी उसे वापस लेकर आ जाएंगे?
नहीं, वही थोड़ा दिन वही रुकेंगे
जी
बाद में हम
वहाँ भी थोड़े
जी, आप इमोशनल हो
थोड़ा
रहे
सा।
हैं, ठीक है, समझ रहे हैं। नीलम जल्दी ठीक हो जाएगी, सबकी उम्मीदें उसके साथ हैं और हम भी यही प्रे कर रहे हैं कि जल्दी से जल्दी नीलम ठीक हो और नीलम वापस आ जाए। गौरव कदम जी, ताना जी, थैंक यू सो मच हमसे बात करने के लिए। और हम चाहते हैं जी, जिस तरह से अपडेट्स आते रहेंगे हम आपको भी इन्फॉर्म करते रहेंगे और हमें बिल्कुल उम्मीद है कि सरकार जो है आपके टच में रहेगी।
Okay, so this was a conversation that my colleague Kitty had earlier with the family, and you heard how they were almost speechless in terms of limited options that they have. Let's get in Anuj joining me live on the broadcast, my colleague from Mumbai, to give us a sense of how things look right now. Anuj, you've been speaking to the family, you've also been speaking to the government there, which has also now tried its best to expedite the case. Talk to us about what they're going through, given the matter being so sensitive.
Well, it's a big day for the Shinde family today. Since last 11 days, they've been trying very hard to find some way, to find some ray of hope. As far as this entire visa hurdle is concerned, it almost seemed to the family that they could never find a way out, considering that they were being told by the US consulate that they will have to wait for 2026 as far as their slot is concerned. On a daily basis, there was a parley that was happening between a family member and a representative from the customer care from the US consulate, from where they would only get one template answer, and that is for them to wait, as there would be no exception that was going to be made, even if it was a medical emergency, because all of these exceptions are only made once you apply for or once you appear for your slot. And the slot in this case was only made available in 2026. So they at least had to wait for 2026 for the further progress. But considering the kind of case that the Shinde family found themselves in, they simply couldn't really afford to wait for that long. On the 16th of February itself, they've gotten to know that their daughter is in a very, very critical condition. When the brother, the cousin of that particular individual was talking to NDTV earlier, he explained how this accident took place. Because the friends of Nilam had explained that entire incident to the family. Where a 120 kmph speeding car hit into this woman, and which left her legs and fractured. It also gave very severe injuries to her chest and brain, which made her slip into a coma, which is a very, very serious condition. The medical authorities there got in touch with the family and asked them to be present there in the hospital as soon as possible, as it would be important for them as well, for medical purposes and for emotional purposes of the patient as well. Which is why last 11 days were very difficult. But today afternoon, they finally got the good news from the US consulate after repeated efforts from different sections of the population, of course, from leaders like Supriya Sule, the deputy chief ministers in Maharashtra. The issue was taken up by
In fact, Anuj, I want to ask you something about the family, but stay with me because I want to quickly get in Ghazali as well, Mohammed Ghazali, who tracks the MEA for us, to give us a sense of how much did the MEA back this case, and is that how one saw the chain reaction in terms of the movement on visa? Ghazali, talk to us about what your sources have been telling you about this case.
See, Gauri, if you remember, when Dr. Jaishankar was there in the United States last month, he had raised the issue of visa delay by the US Embassy, and a particular statement was made out that perhaps if you take 400 days to issue a visa, then the relations between the two countries must be checked into or must be paid heed to, that why this is happening. And even after today, when NDTV picked up the story of Nilam Shinde's family looking for visa, trying for visa, and perhaps they had gone to the consulate earlier, but they were turned away. External Affairs Ministry spoke to the US Embassy here in Delhi. They also spoke to their counterparts back in Washington as well. And after intervention of External Affairs Ministry, the consulate in Mumbai spoke to the family there in Satara with the family members of Nilam Shinde, and the entire process got expedited, and they have now got an appointment for tomorrow. So certainly the diplomatic intervention from Indian External Affairs Ministry has done some help for the family, bringing some relief that at least the first hurdle of even applying for visa or getting an appointment is resolved. Now tomorrow they will be facing this visa interview, and it is very likely, if we go through the gravity of the situation and the intervention of the Indian government now, it is very likely that they will get the visa to visit their ailing daughter there.
Indeed. Very quickly, Anuj, before we wrap this discussion, which is that you've been speaking to the family ever since this entire ordeal started. What are they saying? That what are they planning to do when they are going to go to the US if the visa does come through tomorrow?
Well, the most important thing that will be up their card is to be present there in the hospital, because there are several friends of Nilam present in California, but the hospital authorities have made it very clear that they can only allow her blood relatives to be present there with Nilam, especially when the entire procedure is going on. We saw her cousin speak about how there has been a considerable amount of progress that has been happening in the last few days, which is a great sign. And in that case, if the family is able to be there in presence of their daughter, that would only improve the situation going forward. So the only thing that they would want to prioritize at the moment is what I picked up from my conversations with the family, is that they would want to spend as much time and devote as much time to their daughter, to make sure that they are by her side in the hospital, and to make sure that she is taken out of the hospital safe and sound before traveling there, before planning their travel back to India.
Absolutely. Anuj as well as Ghazali, thanks much for breaking this story down. It has many facets to it, but most importantly is the human angle of a girl stuck in the US waiting for more medical treatment and for her family to get that visa. Let's get in Ashok Sajjanar, former ambassador, joining me on the broadcast to really quickly understand what happens in the case of emergency visas. Ambassador Sajjanar, we all know the long queues that one gets when it comes to US visa, but there are special conditions. There are there for every visa granting in any part of the world, most of them at least. But despite that, this family actually got an interview of 2026.
Yeah, no, that is a special problem as far as the United States is concerned. Your correspondent was just telling you that on the 21st of January, that's last month, when Dr. Jaishankar had a meeting with the new US Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. He told him that, this 400-day long delay that takes place in getting an appointment, that does not serve the bilateral relations well. And we are supposed to have, a comprehensive global strategic partnership between the two countries. And the United States, when Joe Biden was the president, he said this is the most consequential partnership for the United States in the 21st century. And Prime Minister Modi, when he had met Joe Biden in Hiroshima in 2022, he told him this is a partnership of trust. So, this 400 long delay is definitely, an aberration. It needs to be looked into and it needs to be resolved. That having been said, even other embassies also, if you want a visa, like, it's the United Kingdom, it'll take about 8, 10, 12 days or so. Normal, that is the normal thing.
Yes.
But if there are special circumstances, Gauri, like the one that we are talking about just now, then of course, all these normal procedures are kept to one side.
Absolutely.
And on the human level, it is, taken up. And at
Absolutely.
the highest level, you would remember, Gauri, that when Mrs. Sushma Swaraj used to be the External Affairs Minister, it was said that if there was an Indian who was in trouble, even on Mars, India would go and get
Absolutely. Yes, indeed.
And that practice has been taken
And the
forward.
government is really putting its weight behind such cases. But, which brings me to ask you this, Ambassador Sajjanar, that any relationship, one can talk about trade, technology, all of it. But the bedrock of any bilateral relationship is people-to-people ties. And such cases really expose how those need to be worked on more.
No, absolutely. And I think, meaning this, as soon as the matter would have come to, they are in Satara, they are in, a village there. So, I can understand that they would have had difficulty, they would have had problem in finding out where to go, how to reach the higher authorities. But I think once the message got across to the concerned authorities, to the Ministry of External Affairs, to the Foreign Secretary, External Affairs Minister and all, the wheels would have started moving. And, one call from the ministry to the embassy. And of course, they would be very responsive to any request that comes from the ministry, because as it is, these are the very strong links and relations between the ministry and the embassy, like it would be also in Washington DC when our embassy there is concerned, and the State Department and the government of the United States. So any request coming from them, that is acted upon post haste, very quickly, without any delay. And I think that is what seems to have happened this time also, the call coming in. Of course, there has been this long delay from the 16th of February when they came to know, and they would have made up their mind till today, 26th, 27th.
It would have been a harrowing 10 days for the family.
Absolutely.
And, NDTV has been taking this case up, and we'll follow this through.
Kudos to you, Gauri. Kudos to you and your colleagues for having taken it up at, so very proactively and so very strongly. And I think that has also played its own part, because, you have been able to bring it to the notice and attention of the people of the nation as such, and that I'm sure, as far as the ministry is concerned, it would have reached them also.
Absolutely. We leave it there. Ambassador Sajjanar, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.